It seems like forever since we've talked about things looking up in Oklahoma's oil patch. But with oil holding steady at $50 a barrel or more, there is cautious optimism among our state's developers, both large and small. As Jason Doyle reports, if that optimism leads to more production, that's great news for state revenue and our overall economy.
The latest count in Oklahoma shows there are only 17 active rigs in the state's oil patches. Compare that to last year, or even one of the state's most productive years, 2018, and you can't help notice the lack of activity.
At year-end 2020, Oklahoma led the losses in rig activity nationwide, dropping 84% from 2018's rig count high.
With crude oil prices around $55 a barrel, a sense of optimism is beginning to surface.
I am optimistic that things will get better. We saw the low point in the middle of last year, and now we are seeing increasing rig counts. I mean, heck, we're double what we were during the height of the pandemic shutdown in April or May.
We do see some nice increase in the price of oil. Natural gas is still flat, but at least there is a decent market for it.
Dewey Bartlett Jr. is the president of Keener Oil and Gas, a smaller, more traditional Oklahoma energy producer. He says if oil prices get a little higher, he expects to see more activity soon.
About $60 a barrel, somewhere in that range. A year ago, the price was about $60, $60 to $62 a barrel, and most companies were doing okay, and ours included.
Prices are back up around $55 a barrel, and that's good. That's good news. And I saw a report last week from Goldman Sachs thinking by the end of the first quarter of this year, it'll be about 60.
AG says that same projection from Goldman Sachs indicates by mid-year, oil could be at $65 a barrel. Signs are there for a slow recovery.
Over the last quarter of 2020, we did see a little bit of rebounding recovery. People are starting to fly again. People are starting to drive again. They're starting to get out again. And as a result, that's mitigated some of the downturn that we saw early in the second quarter, really, of 2020.
That cautious optimism is being tempered by the transition to a new presidential administration. President Biden has already taken several actions and is expected to take several more concerning energy development in the United States. One of those actions is suspending the Keystone XL pipeline. While the southern leg was completed years ago and is active, work is halted on the upper section from Canada to Cushing, Oklahoma.
There were 50 jobs lost in Cole County as a result of the president's ban on the Keystone XL. That's about $10 million in local contracts and supplies to construct a $17 million pumping station. So there is an impact in Oklahoma.
Stopping the northern leg of the Keystone XL pipeline could cause national security issues as well, because it eliminates energy options for the U.S.
So it takes away options that we would have from a national security perspective. And that's why I say this is a really very, very short-sighted idea from a national security perspective.
Biden also has put a 60-day federal lease moratorium in place. Devon Energy is one of the largest holders of federal land leases. Executive Chairman David Hager recently told Reuters, "We have always been very confident that we will continue to develop and drill on federal acreage. It's embedded in the rights we have in the leases, and we're doing it the right way."
So Oklahoma could potentially gain some production as a result of a constriction of activity on federal lands, but there's a lot of questions about what that really looks like and what that means.
So we won't be able to produce the amounts of crude oil and natural gas that we had been fortunate enough to do. We could produce as much as we needed, and even more, so we could sell into the world market.
Every time there's administration change from Republican to Democrat or back to Republican, we see these kind of shifts and changes. And of course, the Democratic Party is more interested in environmental issues, and the Republican Party is more interested in producing and generating income and wealth.
Even with a more aggressive environmental policy toward energy production, the oil industry is not likely to go away anytime soon.
And I'm for clean everything, but when they start talking about displacing that amount of energy with renewables, it's just not physically possible. It's not physically possible in 10 years. It's not physically possible in 20 years. Maybe some of it could be displaced by 2050 or 2060, but I don't know that it'll ever go away.
The facts are the facts, and it's going to be very hard for a global economy to transition away from something that is, quite frankly, the bedrock for civilization.
Jason Doyle, the Oklahoma News Report.
Jason, thanks a lot. And there is a lot of catching up to do. Since 2018, Oklahoma has lost more than 20,000 full-time oil and gas-related production jobs.